Welcome back. Okay, sorry, my recording took a minute to register, so
I was like,
we'll
wait a
leave that
second.
in. But
I miss, sorry, man. I'm already just,
no,
this
go
is
ahead.
classic us. This is us,
Yeah.
I miss the intro music days.
I do
I'm
too.
just, I'm just gonna bring it
I
back.
do too,
You know what?
man. We should just find another actually copyright free song and just bring it back. It's just been laziness, really. But also, it's because the other one is so ingrained that it's gonna
Right.
feel weird to pick another one.
Yeah.
But welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast, y'all. Podcast about all nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your awkward hosts. That's Blake. I'm Will. And today we're here to talk a little Critical Role, maybe distract ourselves from the horrors of the outside world. Just
That's
some
fair.
some nice tabletop D&D, where everything is okay besides the
I
god-eating, terror.
I was in a conversation with a friend of mine who's also a DM, and we were talking about where we pull inspiration from. And he was naming off. He's like Pol Pot, Nazi Germany. He's like, I just pull all these. Which, by the way, a lot of game developers think of how many games over the years were the bad guy. It's and they were the Nazis all along, And
Yeah, yeah.
it's the go-to, and for good reason, obviously. I'm not defending. Can we start over?
Sure.
I feel like now this is gotten really awkward all of a sudden.
Cancel.
No, but seriously, so he was naming off your big ones, and
Yeah.
I just meanwhile I was naming off I watched Batman Beyond as a kid, and there was this character that I really liked, but anywho,
Batman Beyond was peak.
the point that I was getting at though was I was like, I really kind of want to escape from the world and not remind myself of the world, but
right.
to each their own.
Which I don't know if you were saying that randomly, but which Batman Beyond villain?
Bro, I'm gonna really upset our Batman stans. Mr. Freeze, who I can't think of his real name, not his real name, but his person name.
Yeah.
But they bring him back in Batman Beyond.
Right.
He has a whole character arc in there, but I feel like it's Arthur. Is it Arthur?
It sounds sort of familiar. He was always a great villain because he always had that kind of you kind of understood. He was trying to save his wife,
right?
And then he was also kind of an environmentalist, if I recall. But maybe I'm crossing my wires with Poison Ivy, but I feel like they teamed up a lot.
I'm really sorry, guys. Victor Freeze.
Victor Freeze. There we go.
There you go.
Arthur.
This has not been my proudest intro to the podcast.
You know what?
So
that's us, though.
Yeah.
Just gotta embrace it.
Yeah. Sure. But anyway, what I was saying though was, I kind of like the idea of the canonical villain that everyone knows is the villain, and then you get to know him a little bit, and you're like, okay. And I feel like what was a standard character in the Batman show got so much more depth to him in Batman Beyond. So anyway, which was a great show, by the way. Batman Beyond was awesome.
And so was Batman the Animated Series.
Yes.
The
not the gargoyle, the bat dude who eats the oranges.
Yeah. Of course.
Clayface.
Yep.
I'm all about it.
So good. But yeah, sorry, lost my train of thought, but we're here to talk about Critical Role. Just the standard announcements. You guys know the drill by now. Join the Discord. Critical Role watch party this Thursday. We gotta be creeping up on the end here. Again, I don't think this week's will be the last one because there's been no such announcement. Plus, we got a big fight. But probably 2 or 3 left, I would guess. So join us for these final 2 or 3 watch parties for Campaign 3. It's been really fun. And then,
are we gonna do a little Campaign 4? Is it too soon to?
No, yeah. That's why I qualified Campaign 3. Fingers crossed the world still exists. Pixels Podcast will be talking about Critical Role and Campaign 4 as well. But yeah, Campaign 3 vibes. It'll be one of the last ones. And then
it'll be weird. The end of my first full campaign.
Yeah, I know.
So then I'll I'll finally be a real Critical Role fan.
You'll never be one. No, I'm just kidding. You've always been one. We don't gatekeep here. But yeah, I lost my train of thought again. But moving on to the next thing, maybe I'll remember and come back. But we said this a couple times now, but return of the stream this Friday, maybe?
Yes.
At least that's our plan.
Yes.
1 p.m. Central Time is when that will happen. No, that's not helpful for a lot of you at various places in the world, but if you've been by before, it's at that same time. So we'll be returning to that first one of the year, hopefully. And then Worlds Beyond Number.
Yes, we are. I know that we're throwing a lot of like uncertainty around it. It's happening. Though I will say it won't happen next Friday because I have to drive to Southwest Little Rock because my sister is adopting 2 girls.
Oh,
so
you're
my twin sister.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's like 4 hours away. So, and it's Friday morning.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Alrighty. Well, but yeah, this Friday we
stream launch. Yeah, this Friday, and then go from there.
Boom. And then the only other thing I was gonna say is Worlds Beyond Number is back. So sometime in the next week we'll be talking about that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
Alrighty. Well, in that case, y'all, you know the drill around here. We are going to start with our recap of the episode, which we cut out and host separately for your catching up convenience. So if you happen to find yourself just on our recap video and you want to hear our full discussion on this episode, it will be a separate video linked down in the description box below. But without further ado, episode 119 of Campaign 3, Predathos Awakened. So this episode picks up with Imogen going full Akira, with Predathos basically taking over her body and turning into this like massive Avatar-esque form. And Fern is trying to reach out to her and be like, Imogen, like, remember who you are. But Imogen isn't even like in the same reality anymore because she kind of finds herself in this like void between worlds, as Matt describes it. This basically dark expanse, but there are beacons of red light that basically represent the Rudisborn all across the world. And there's also other normal lights, which are like non-Rudisborns. And the lines between her and Predathos are blurred at this point, and she feels this immense need to awaken and feed. So Laudna casts Phantasmal Force on Imogen and gives her and uses that spell to basically give her flashes of memories of them first meeting, their time in the cabin, meeting Bell's Hell's adventures, just like trying to get through to her and remind her. It's at this point that Predathos, whom is also Imogen at this stage, Predathogen, basically like takes a step forward and initiative is called. So we then launch into basically 3 hours of combat. This first half is really long. And so as per usual, just going to hit the highlights here. But combat begins, and they quickly realize that Predathos is weak to lightning/thunder damage. So everyone is trying to get that in if their spells allow. And we also find out that there's some crazy layer actions and legendary actions that are going on that utilize like the crystals around the room. So lots of things happening. But one thing of note is that initially Matt is like not using his legendary resistances. Like even when Predathos is failing something, Matt is choosing to hold on to those. So everyone's kind of trying to get through to Imogen while also like during the initial stages of this combat, but their voices like aren't able to reach her wherever she is right now. And inside the void that she is in, she again sees all of these lights. But then she noticed there's some that are kind of different from others. And she notices there's this like golden humanoid figure that's also drifting in this void space with her, but their face is like a skull and they're like decrepit. And she quickly realizes that this is the body of a god, and this is Vordo the Golden Weaver, one of the 2 that Predathos had eaten. And this is one of the reasons Predathos has been able to sustain itself for so long. And Vordo is described as massive but empty, basically just a husk or a fragment of what he once was, and no longer has the same divine essence because his domain was passed on, or was taken over by another god after he was eaten. Anyways, outside, combat continues like normal. Bell's Hell's getting in chip damage where they can, and they eventually come to realize, I think thanks to Ashton maybe doing a pretty high insight check, that they need to break Imogen out of this avatar. So Laudna tries to use Disintegrate, but this causes Matt to finally use one of the legendary resistances to negate that. Damage continues. We cut back to the Void with Imogen, where she tries to speak to Vordo, saying, "We need your help." But she again realizes here that like this isn't the god that it once was. And so instead of trying to communicate with him, Imogen like touches the tether between them. And like I think she casts like Shocking Grasp or something like that. But effectively what happens is she consumes Vordo's essence. Like she eats what remains of this god. And when that happens, Predathos outside loses a bit of its golden glow and actually gets weaker. And Imogen gains a bunch of temporary HP. So combat continues. Laudna goes to use the Raven Queen's mask, but notices that, well, first, nothing happens when she does that. And then she notices that this mask has imperfections and it's a dupe. Breas at some point has swapped it out for the real one. And Sam just looks at her and everybody at the table and is like, it's just business. And then Laudna tries to like look for the mask on his person and can see that it's attached to his belt. So we then cut back to Imogen, who tries to find Ethodoc, the other god in this realm. And being the Lord of Endless Shadow, she eventually finds him like in this darkness. And she goes to grab his tether, but actually rolls a natural 1. So she fails, and the shadows like envelop it, so she can no longer even see it after that. Outside, combat continues. Breas does at one point do a big heal on himself, but Predathos eats half the healing with like his dampened divinity. So not only does Breas only get healed for half, but the other half heals Predathos. Then on Fern's next turn, she calls out to Imogen once more, but this time Imogen can actually hear her. 1, because they've done some damage, but 2, I think she like rolled much higher. So Imogen, hearing this, starts running toward Fern's red light, her Ruinous-born light, and bursts out of the chest of Predathos and comes free. This causes Predathos' form to shift. It was previously like an Imogen-esque form, but now it's just like a purely monstrous form, and Imogen can now join in on the fight with everybody else. Then on Laudna's next turn, she tries to steal the Raven Queen's mask back from Breas using Mage Hand, but she's unsuccessful. Breas is able to like wrestle it away from her. So Laudna then just runs over to him and tries to put on the mask while it's still like in his belt. But she rolls a nat 20 to do this, so she's successful. And as soon as the mask touches her face, she feels cold, and the entire room goes cold. And Predathos like suddenly starts going in like slow motion, and shadow overtakes all of them. A crimson pool of blood starts to form beneath them, and above them like thousands of the golden threads appear, and the matron's mask like starts to push through it. And she says, "Let's talk." And that's where we go to break on the first half.
Calling it first half is very generous. This was like 3/4 of the episode. But coming back from break, though, the party, like Will mentioned, has been temporarily teleported, for lack of a better phrase, to the matron's domain. Or at least the matron's influence has put them sort of like in this stasis in the moment for them to have a conversation. The matron and Imogen particularly have a conversation back and forth of like what comes next. Imogen really asking like, what should we do? And the matron still, since the matron in the R chart were originally team release Predathos, the matron is very much more inquisitive as to like, what would you all want to do? What would you like to do? Rather than pressing them in any one direction. They make it clear that their intention is to free Predathos. And in talking about what comes next, Imogen has this idea for the matron and the other gods of, a la what we saw in Downfall. We know that the gods can make themselves mortal. What if the gods agreed to come through the divine gate, assume their mortal forms again, and essentially forget their godliness, forget their godhood, and live normal lives? The matron's extremely intrigued by this. It seems like kind of a decent middle ground from the alternative plans, and basically asks Imogen, do you think you would convince the other gods to cross the threshold, to be willing to do this? And Imogen is certain that they can at least convince some of them to do this. The party also has like some small dialogue on like, are we sure Predathos isn't going to like eat everybody? And Imogen mentions that, when she was inside of Predathos, she could only see the Rudisborn and then the edges of divinity, like the gods just barely out of reach behind the divine gate. So from that, she assumes that it probably is safe to release Predathos. Before the conversation ends, the matron also says, to sort of help you with this final battle, I'm going to give you 2 boons. And the boons that she mentions is the boon of potency, to see your strikes true. And Matt, by the way, doesn't say what these things do. They're just sort of presumed. But the boon of potency, to see your strikes true, so presumably maybe a higher roll or more damage. The boon of fortification, the means to defend yourself from the hatred ahead, so presumably maybe a higher AC or resistance to damage. The boon of convalescence, which is the renewal of mind and arcane, which they assume to be getting back spell slots. The boon of restoration, which is the weaving of wounds and blood, presumably healing in some form. And then lastly, the boon of understanding, a leap ahead in personal wisdom and knowledge, which they assume to mean we are gaining levels from this. The party's immediately jazzed about these boons. They're just like, this is so fun. And ultimately what they decide is doing rollies, and the 2 highest people can choose what those boons will be. Laura Bailey and Ashley Johnson are the 2 highest rolls, and they choose convalescence, which Matt says they get 28 levels of spell slots back across the party, and the boon of understanding. So the party then gains 2 levels and becomes level 17. Which, by the way, I didn't remember if this was temporary just for the fight or if this was permanent.
It's temporary.
Okay, yeah. So temporarily level 17. They don't get the benefits of a long rest, but they get all the added benefits of being level 17. All that to say, we go back to the battle. There's a couple of actions from the party members. I think Imogen goes maybe. Fern goes. But eventually we get to Dorian, who just, classic D&D player, throws out the chromatic orb, which is so frustrating when it misses. But it hits. It does 7d6 worth of damage. And he gets the, how do you want to do this? And the party's kind of like, oh, well, we just got these boons. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that's great. Cool. But then the room, as Predathos shatters, the room shakes, and this massive Predathos head stretches out from the wall. 2 large fists come up around the room around them. And seemingly we're going to part 2, form 2, stage 2 of this combat in the next episode. But that was episode 119, Predathos Unleashed. And if you're watching just our recap, click the link in the description to see our full discussion and let us know what you thought about the episode as well. So there you go.
Well done, man.
I apologize for people watching just the recap too, because I briefly realized my notes were on the window that I record us on.
Oh yeah.
So if you saw my text throw up, that's because I was moving the notes over.
Oh,
but
well, didn't. Oh, I get what you're saying.
Anywho.
Yeah, I got major like Andros vibes with that the final Predathos reveal.
It was
big face.
I thought it was very Final Fantasy-esque too.
Yeah,
which Matt's
yeah,
a big Final Fantasy fan. But yeah, getting the getting the second health bar is always a fun feeling, I
Yeah.
think. So
So, do we think that there's a third health bar? Like, when this kind of touches back into our previous episode discussion of like, is lewdness going to come back? Like, do you think
mm,
this is the final fight now, or there's even something beyond this?
I think this is the final fight.
Yeah.
I feel like it would have to be the final fight. Now, whether there's like an additional form or lewdness shows up, I don't think lewdness is showing up. I think we talked about this a little bit last episode. I think lewdness is done. I think that story arc is done.
Bro, there's no way.
Um,
There's
I
no
just
way he's done.
I think it's done. I think he might show up in the live show. Is what I think is what they've cooked up. But I think we're done with lewdness.
No way.
I mean, because what he wanted happened. Predathos, the doors got opened, and they're seemingly heading towards releasing Predathos.
Yeah.
So,
but
why
he
is the
didn't.
dude
He didn't know that for sure. He didn't know what they were gonna do.
True. He could be peeking around a corner, I guess.
But I guess he could know now. Like he could see what's happened now, and maybe he's like, "All right, my work's done." But I just don't buy it. I don't buy it narratively or meta narratively. Like, the live show thing, like maybe, but I still don't know if they would do that. But anyways, we talked about this last time, so we don't have to dive into it again. But I don't think we've seen the last of lewdness. Not that he's gonna be like a full-on third health bar final boss fight, and then we're gonna like go through it all again. But like he will play some role still, I think.
We'll see.
Book it.
Book it.
Book it.
Yeah, I mean, I we didn't have Gaius in the chat. I don't think we did. So I don't know the stats around the party, but like getting spell slots back,
Yeah.
gaining levels. I mean, I assume that the party's pretty sturdy right now, but I don't actually know. So
That was such a cool idea too. Like the way
this was a very fun. I say was. It's still an action, but this has been a very fun homebrewed encounter. Like Predathos has had some cool abilities. Yeah, getting the boons was cool. Imogen realizing she could consume Vordo was a really cool like flavor as well.
I'm wondering if there's any more besides the HP that she got from that we just don't know yet.
Yeah. I bet
not that there needs to be, because it weakened Predathos in addition to her giving her the HP. But it'd be cool if she had like some sort of special feat or something.
Were they saying they want to get her back into Predathos though?
I don't know.
Because I mean, there has to be a vessel, right?
I thought so. Well, yeah, I guess for him to escape through, well, I guess it's kind of, I don't know how it works now, because like they technically made a hole when they came in, right? So could Predathos leave through that hole, or does he still need a vessel to like pass through the prison?
I think logically he would still need a vessel, otherwise you could have just walked past Imogen.
Yeah, I guess so.
And I think there was a line about getting Imogen back into Predathos after beating Predathos into submission.
Now that you say that, I think that was the plan.
I think I remember Taliesin saying something like, "We got to get her back in there," or something like that.
So actually, now that you say that, I just realized I didn't watch the cooldown for this one. Did you?
I didn't. I haven't seen a cooldown in a long time, fortunately. I did hear from someone else though that Matt talked about the model was awesome for Predathos, but that how he had a lewdness head. He had a lewdness head. He had the Imogen head, and I think he said there was one more. Like just like the head could just pop off depending on what that final.
That's really cool.
What that final encounter was going to look like.
Yeah,
which I really like too. It's classic DM of like all possible scenarios.
Yeah,
interesting. Which is I think it's interesting. I talked a lot about this at length. I thought the lewdness encounter was extremely underwhelming and it almost seemed like Matt didn't want Ludinus to be in that final room. But the fact that he had a lute in his head, I mean, it seems like, I guess it's kind of funny, like the narratives we, come up with and create. So there was it's semi-related to this, or just to expand this point a little bit further. It's just funny, like, there's been so many instances of this over the campaign. Like, when Ashton made the decision to consume the shard, and people were talking about how the cast was so mad at Ashton. And then with Orem and Laudna, you had some dialogue around like, Liam was so upset at Marisha.
Yeah.
And then you have Liam being like, that was like one of my all-time favorite moments,
Yeah.
But so on this same narrative, the Path of Exile 2 devs, the lead devs, they had a patch come out, and before the patch was coming out, they did a screenshot of a boss called the Executioner, and they were like, news coming for our new patch, and then here was the screenshot. Well, everyone read it as like, oh, they're gutting all these builds, they're nerfing all these builds. And then the lead devs did like an hour-long like tell all about the patch, and the content creator interviewing them was like, well, hey, you haven't mentioned any nerfs, like, are there nerfs? And they were like, oh no, we're not nerfing anything. And he was like, oh, well, the community was like talking about the Executioner picture. It must have been because you were like, gutting builds. And the lead dev was literally just like, what? Like, kind of like, what's wrong with you guys? So I guess it's just human nature, but it is funny, like the narratives that get created, and then Matt's like, I had like multiple heads, so anyway.
Maybe that Ludinus head will get use yet.
Give it a break, dude. Let it go.
Just saying.
Everything reminds me of him. So.
But yeah, those the boons were really cool. Reminded me of Downfall, where they were like choosing which of their godly powers they would get back first or whatever. The level one seems by far the best, even though we don't know what some of the other ones were necessarily. But
it's definitely the best, right? Because you also get not just the spell slots back, you get new spell slots.
Yeah, new spells even too. Yeah.
Right.
I'm not
just curious now,
versed enough to know like what they all got, but I'm sure some of them might have gotten a new feat or like a new, another action surge or something for all I know. So that was really cool, I thought.
Dude, level 17, 9th level spell.
That's right. There we go.
Bro, that's a huge breakpoint.
Yeah. So I guess.
Dang.
So Dorian could have gotten Wish.
Yeah.
Predathos maybe too.
Does Matt have any kind of like restrictions?
Maybe
around that.
It's been used before.
Yeah. Okay.
So behind the scenes, maybe he's kind of given some.
Dang.
We saw how they used it in the Vox Machina one shot. So right? No, that was Channel Divinity. Never mind.
Oh, okay.
But if I would assume it would be like kind of similar in terms of, Anyways, yeah. And could Breas get it too, or is because he multi-classes could he not get it?
If you multi-class, no, but it depends on how many points. What is he again?
I thought, isn't he Bard Paladin or no?
I might be right. And I can't remember what he said he was taking his points in either. Let's see. Data by character. I miss crit roll stats, dude.
Yeah. Same.
Okay, let's see here. So Imogen is straight sorcerer, so she has a 9th level spell. Breas is Paladin Bard. I don't know the split, but presuming that he's like 2 points, then if he's 2 points in one, then he's level 15 for the other, which gives him a level 8 spell slot, which is still, crazy powerful.
Yeah.
Laudna's Warlock Sorcerer, but I don't remember how many points she isn't that either.
Yeah, I
So
don't either.
anyway, point being, level 17 is really big.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could see some really, yeah. I'm curious now, like what are all the 9th level spells we could see? Wish is already like massive though. Do you think
Especially,
we're gonna?
go ahead.
I was just saying, do you think we're gonna see like any permanent player deaths?
I mean, it's certainly on the table for sure, especially
Yeah.
with healing being halved and also healing Predathos,
Yeah.
which I'm assuming that's still true. Which, I mean, if you got to heal, you got to heal, but it does suck that you're also healing the boss for the same amount if you decide to, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if resurrection would work. Like, considering he can do that to healing spells, I wonder if he could, like, negate. Like, if somebody does go down, can they even bring him back?
Right. I'm also thinking like the only nuance of this is the 9th level spells that have it would effectively have to be component free, like one that doesn't have a component cost to it, because it's
That's true.
unlikely they would have that on hand. Having said that, there's it's not the majority of 9th level spells that have a component to it.
Yeah.
So
I could also see that being hand waved if, as part of like the godly bestowing of that power from the Raven Queen, it's like you have the components necessary to.
There's just a lot of cool flavor we could get in this
Yeah.
combat. Time stop, like you said, wish,
Yeah.
which I think would be crazy. Man, I love that this episode ended where it did, because I would probably get my players together and just be like, hey, yeah, those of you with 9 level spell slots, hey, choose whatever you want. Like, this is it. So just to like really amp it up. But anyway, yeah, it could be.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it could be really interesting to see what happens.
I think so. I know in the I think it was the email that went out today, maybe it was yesterday, but not that we already knew this, but they even used the language of like the epic finale to all 3 campaigns. So like,
oh, is this the final episode?
No, it wasn't. I don't remember the exact language. It wasn't saying that. It wasn't saying this is the final episode, but it was like, this is like, we are in the finale of 10 years of Critical Role and 3 campaigns worth of whatever. So this definitely does feel like that big final triumphant battle.
Yeah. Wow. It's cool. I mean, it's funny. Like, this is not like to stroke our own ego, but like, man, we've done every episode of this campaign, and it's cool to go back, 50, 60 episodes when we were having the conversations around like, how does this end? And it was like, I mean, it's got to be Ludinus and Predathos. Like, it just has to be.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool that that's how it has played out. Ludinus obviously being totally gone from the picture and not coming back.
We'll see.
But I just respect to Matt. I like how the story beats have added up in that way. Though Matt being a Final Fantasy fan, I joked about how it's always in a Final Fantasy game where like the real final battle is the random. You're like, who is this? Like, what was this? It's fate itself. You're like, where did Sephiroth go?
On that note, I could see, like, I do think that this is like the final big battle, but that's not to say that there couldn't be stuff after, whether it's Ludinus or Asmodeus, if he's got some like weird twisted plan in mind, which this kind of segues us into their current plan for how to deal with the gods of, like, I don't think, sure, some of them might be keen to become mortal, but I don't think all of them are. So like, I wonder if there could be like an Asmodeus like twist where, I don't know how, like, he tries to usurp in this vacuum of power or something, and maybe there is some other threat that has to be dealt with as well.
Yeah, there's been a lot of controversy around this too. It's flimsy. Like, this could go either way, in that I could totally see a few of the gods being like, okay, I don't want to get destroyed, let's do it. And then a few being like, because it's, in a way, it's effectively the same outcome. Like if they give up their power versus like run away, the
Yeah.
gods leave regardless, right? I could absolutely see Asmodeus agreeing to it for the sole reason that, as clever as he is, you know, he's like, yeah, we're all gonna forget our memory,
Yeah.
and then he just doesn't,
Yeah.
or um, which leads to some like really interesting and intriguing thoughts about could we have there's some interesting storyline ideas for the next campaign's characters, either being a god themselves or being like a time jump and being like a descendant of one of the gods,
Yeah.
um, or maybe not Vecna 2.0, but could we see the party in campaign 4 having to stop a god from ascending to godhood, like assuming that like Predathos is long gone, coming back? I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see which way it goes, because if this is the plan they go with, which it seems to be what they want to go with at this point. I mean, Breas being a wild card here, because we don't know what he doesn't have the mask anymore, I guess, but we don't know what he'll try to do. But he's probably not like team let's let the gods become mortals, I would assume.
Right.
But anyway, if that's the plan they go with, I don't think all of the guards are going to do it. So, like,
No.
are some just going to flee and Predathos will chase them? And then, like, is that what they're hoping is going to happen? Because you still got to
Yeah, there was like a weird thing about. I'm just looking at my notes. There was some weird thing about if the divine gate's going to get dropped, they all have to agree to it. So like, this is doubly difficult in that not only do we assume they won't all agree with it, but the party has to convince all of them.
yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly. So
Yeah, I do feel like there was something like that said.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, we're gonna see. Do you like this as a solution?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an interesting way to kind of come at. It wasn't one that I had thought of previously. So I think that's
Why
kind of
didn't
cool.
Why did Imogen offer it again, as opposed to just like I guess I don't remember why the solution came up in the sense of was it to um like were they worried the gods were gonna like try to stop them or something? Or
I don't know if she I don't know if maybe it was just like a third
yeah.
choice. It's like, hey, you don't have to either die or run away. You could just revoke your powers and then he won't come after you anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it was partially that, like, because she didn't think they would go the other way. But on the Divine Gate thing, I think it was also that Predathos wouldn't be stopped by it. Like, if he
Mm,
got out, he can get through the Divine Gate anyway, I think. So, like, maybe assuming that's the case, like we have a freed Predathos on the loose, like, okay, well, you might as like, and that's option B. Option A is bring down the Divine Gate and become mortal. So, like, maybe that's how they could kind of convince them to do that.
mm.
If the alternative is Predathos will get you anyway.
So getting to a more meta conversation around this, or I guess grander narrative is the better way to put it. Um, where does Predathos then live out for eternity into like the cosmos, like hunting gods? Is
Yeah,
that
I
like
guess
the implication?
that's what that's my guess, I guess, because again, I'm assuming all of the gods wouldn't become mortal, which means some of them would flee.
Hmm.
So I guess that means Predathos chases them, and then that's just happening out there somewhere.
Hmm.
If not, if not that, let's say all the gods do become mortal. I don't know what Predathos does. Maybe he leaves to go search for divine beings elsewhere or something.
Do you think there's? Because I'm just trying to like play this out in my head of like if this went this way, we'd be heading to a campaign 4 without any gods. Is that a safe assumption?
I think that's like the presumed outcome, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't put it past there being some
Yeah.
twist, like be it from
Yeah.
Asmodeus or otherwise, that there are still some divine beings
Yeah.
at play.
So that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is I also kind of wonder, is this a little too clean and tidy? Like, could there be a double cross or something? Like, because here's kind of what I wonder about. We know, we know that it's kind. I'm trying to think about how to process this. Is there a scenario where Imogen takes the form of Predathos, slithers out, goes on to, travel the world, travel the universe, and the gods like, we're gonna become mortal, but like actually do this to like lure Predathos, because it's been, thousands of years, right? Like I would assume they've only gotten stronger or smarter about
Yeah.
Predathos. Is there a world where like the party's actually tricked and Imogen gets like resealed away, or um I don't know if that's too strong of a double cross, but I guess I just wonder like what else could be in play here that Matt's thinking of that we don't realize yet.
Yeah. I mean, I think anything's possible. And I mean, I don't know what specifics would be different necessarily, but in Downfall, the mortal version of the gods were able to reascend. So, like, could they just do that again, even if it's
Yeah.
200 years later? Like, I wonder what might be in place that would prevent that.
Well, I think they're also supposed to agree to forget
Mm.
their godhood. But then I guess the question would be, when they do die at the end of their natural lives, is it they're dead, or is it they're back to a god and like, quick, get back into your human form before
Yeah.
you know I don't know. So
Yeah, I don't either.
I think some of it's a little clunky too, because like it's a D&D party who came up with a solution. I didn't get the impression they had like really hashed this out before this. Um, so like it's a D&D party that kind of came up with it in the moment. So like it's a little quirky and a little like, how's this gonna work exactly? And I think maybe it might help people who are also feeling like the weirdness of it to remember that, in that, I think sometimes we want it both ways, in that it's like, I don't want it to be scripted, but I want this to be, peak cinema.
Yeah.
And, it's a bunch of nerds playing D&D in front of a camera. So so I'll have to say I appreciate the clunkiness a little bit, and I think some of this is gonna kind of come to form in the next episode or two.
Yeah. And I think whatever happens, Matt can fix it in post to not literally, but like he can make whatever details end up
Yeah.
working for the vision. You know what I mean?
Right.
As all DMs must
Yeah.
do. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's definitely some wrinkles in the, like, if this is what they do and they go through with it, I think there's some wrinkles that will be like fun story plot devices to play out, whether in this campaign or in the next.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I guess it's on the Raven Queen, like, to go convince all the other gods while they're dealing with Predathos. Like, was that the?
Well, I went back and rewatched my half, and there was a line that I wrote down that I had actually missed the first time. Um, where is this? Oh, well, now I can't. I have 10,000 tabs open. Um, so I missed this line the first time, but she actually says, before she gives them the boons, she asks like, will you convince them to cross the threshold? Which to me, I read as convincing the gods to drop the divine gate and
Mhm.
like become mortal. But I could be wrong on that.
Because I mean, like, if it is on Bell's Hells, when are they supposed to do that? You know what I mean? Like, they're supposed to defeat Predathos and then, like, Imogen stays there in the center of the planet while some of them go talk to the god. I mean, I guess the
Yeah.
gods could just come commune with them in that spot. Like, maybe they don't. Maybe there's no traveling or necessary. But
Mhm.
um, Yeah, I don't know. It'd be cool RP to get to see the conversation if it is Bell's
Mm.
Hells that has to have it. But in terms of this being the end of the campaign and not being like 12 more episodes, I could also see like that's handled off screen by the Raven Queen if that's what they ultimately decide to do. But I don't know.
Mhm. I think it would be cool to bring back the Downfall actors. And when the conversation happens, the party all move to one side and all these people come out again. And where it would make sense, obviously,
Yeah,
you know. But I think it'd be really cool.
that'd definitely be fun.
And then have like the players talk to each other, I
Yeah,
don't know. Kind of interesting. So
totally. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I guess that would be a pretty big feat from like a scheduling and cost perspective, just for like
True.
a one conversation thing.
Yeah, I would say it would probably be Matt if something like that
Yeah.
happened, but it would be awesome if.
It's totally going to be the players. So, anyway, okay. Well,
Or go ahead.
I was just saying. I mean, it was a combat episode, so there's not really a
Yeah.
whole lot to talk about. Now that I've said that, we've been talking for however long this has been.
Yeah. The only other thing really, and there's really not too much else to say on it, is the Breas betrayal that we discovered with the mask, which, makes perfect sense. I was wondering when he asked to see it that night, especially when like nothing really came of it, like what was going on there. I'm very curious what his plan was, if there was one. Like, was it simply to remove that piece from Bell's Hells so that they couldn't enlist the help of the gods, or did he have his own plans for it?
I don't know. I think it's a great question. I see both situations being the case. I love that Sam did it. I love the hijinks of it.
Yeah.
I was surprised how much the rest of the table like rallied against him.
I know.
Like, you traitor. And it's like, all right, guys, you just took a mask. It's not really that big of a deal. But yeah, I don't know. I do it, now that you ask it, I kind of wonder if it's the former. Like, you just wanted to take away that option from the group. But
because I mean, I think that would make sense if that was all it was, because at least
when did this happen, by the way?
It happened like right after they got it, because he asked to like see it that night. He's like, "Can I see it? Like, I want to pray with it or something." Like, I don't remember exactly what was said, but it was something like that.
Okay.
And then nothing happened with it.
Yeah.
But that was the moment he made the switch, obviously. Yeah, I almost felt kind of bad for him when it got stolen, which made me wonder, did he have something like, I don't remember exactly what happened, but he was like, she can just take it without, like, because at first there was like no roll or anything.
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
And then we kind of had the contested rolls happen. And maybe, that doesn't mean he had some plan. It could have just been like, hey, that, so, but I do think it could speak to maybe he did have some intention with it that now he can't do. And if so, I'm very curious what that would have been. Classic Sam, though.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm just, my wife's texting about dinner plans. Yeah. It was definitely like classic, and I feel like I keep saying this, just like classic D&D party shenanigans of like one person wanting to do something against someone else.
Yeah.
And as a DM, you're like, okay, yeah. And the other person's like, there's like this weird negotiating that happens where like they can just take it. Yeah, give me a roll. Like it's just very just classic D&D table.
Yeah.
So,
and then the nat 20 to just put it on his belt. That was a clutch roll.
Yeah, I love that too. So,
but yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, heavy combat. So I don't know if I really have too much else to say on this one.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for Thursday, and for you guys listening and watching. Like, we have our watch party on Thursday, whether it's the last episode or not. It's the last one of the month. So,
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, I'm really hoping they don't have one next week as like a if it is the last one, like we're just gonna go ahead and do it since I'll be driving.
I don't think they will.
Yeah, I think you're right. So come join us and then join our stream on Friday too.
We know it's another combat heavy episode, presumably. So I'm assuming, I guess this one actually wasn't that long.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming this one might be longer.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But yeah, come join us.
Maybe we'll get a 1 hour first half,
Yeah,
3
it just
hour
happens
second half.
again.
Just keeps happening. You can't keep getting away with it. If it happens again this time, I'll probably be like, hey man, you wanna split it at a different time or
It hadn't been too bad because it's mostly been combat.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, so come hang out with us this Thursday and then stream. Fingers crossed this Friday, unless I can just see I get deathly ill now or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, come hang out with us there as well.
All right.
Alrighty, y'all. Bye.